Welcome to another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. I am so excited today because I have a special guest, Gavin Stone. And before I say hello to Gavin, I am going to read just the first paragraph of his bio because it is quite extensive. Gavin Stone served as a security and intelligence covert specialist. He has over 20 years of applied experience globally deployed by government organizations such as the British Ministry of Defense, corporations, and ultra high net worth VIPs. His specialty is human, within which he is adept at the full required spectrum of tradecraft skills. Of important note is Stone's expertise in surveillance and anti-surveillance, together with time-sensitive human analysis in high-risk dynamic situations. There is much more of that, but I want to read, before I say hello officially to Gavin, his titles include Stop Bullying Class Practitioner, Intelligence Officer, Media Consultant, former Civil Servant Officer in the British Ministry of Defense, former freelance security and intelligence operative and instructor trainer, certified neuro-linguistic programming NLP practitioner, number 28 in the world body language expert, statement analysis and CCA, which is combined communication analysis, and deception detection expert. His best-selling book, How to Tell If Someone is Lying, paved the way for his two fiction novels, and his YouTube channel brings the lessons he has learned during his career directly to you. And I'm going to include all of this in the show notes. And after all that, hi, Gavin, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And I want to tell everybody, Gavin comes straight from the UK.
Yeah, I'm currently here at the minute.
That's very exciting. So besides your list of titles, you have something like 33 licenses and certifications. Is
Yeah,
there anything you can't do?
I can't. Yes, there are. I'm not going to say it publicly though. So yeah, it's probably over 40 or 50 by now. With the qualifications in everything from psychology to close protection and teaching. There's so much, and part of my kind of life, as it were, is the constant need to keep studying, keep educating. I'm currently studying little bits of neurobiology just to kind of keep me active mentally, so that there's never that kind of, and I always do go back and revisit things I've learned and brush up again as well.
That is quite amazing. And I want to start at the beginning. How in the world did you get into, and I'll call it the spy business?
Okay.
Were you an inquisitive kid? Is it in your DNA, or what originally got you interested in this whole field?
So I mean, all kids grow up watching the usual movies and kind of playing the usual games. But it was something that for me, it was never something that I thought one day that's what I'm going to be. We all think about it as kids, but it wasn't like that with me. And I didn't get into the game the usual way. It wasn't like I was at university and there was a tap on the shoulder and someone said, "Hey, do you want to come and work for us?" I actually started right at the bottom end. And I had a friend of mine knock on the door, and he said to me, you're one of the most resourceful guys I know. Can you help me with something?" I said, "Yeah, what?" He said, "I'm trying to find somebody. I can't locate them. Can you help me out?" So I did it. It took me less than a day, and I found out afterwards I was doing something called process serving. I had to give him an envelope, and it's sometimes per serve for personally serving them, and it's usually a court summons or something along those lines, and I didn't think too much about it that much more until I think it was like the end of the month. He came round and he got an envelope full of cash for me, and he said, "There you go." And I said, "What's this?" He said, "That's for that job you did finding that person." I was like, "Thank you." I said, "You got any more than people you want finding?" Um, so so that was how it kind of I started off in the process serving side of it. And it led up from people tracing to missing persons to marital investigations and that kind of thing, which ended up into private investigations, fraud investigations, government contracts, and then the government contracts worked onward and upward until eventually I just got in with the right people and rubbing shoulders with the right kind of people in the right environments, I managed to get what was known as I don't like the term myself. Officially in the industry, it's called a floater.
Okay.
And what you do is you do TDYs or temporary duties, and you cover for people in all manner of circumstances. So there might be a residential security team. One I did for somebody who was in like 27th in line to the throne or something like that, and there was one of their team had to go on holiday for 2 weeks, so I stood in. You might be doing a couple of weeks here, a day there, and before long, I built up a reputation of being the kind of guy you could just drop me anywhere, and I could just crack on with the job. And it just escalated from there until I ended up working in human intelligence, and that was when the fun really started.
I bet it did. Now, do you think it's in DNA? Do you think it's you just are naturally gifted at that? Or what you do, can it be learned if someone doesn't have those natural abilities?
Well, I think to do it, it takes a particular type of person. But since like working in the industry and mixing with a lot of different people from, the intelligence community, whether I've got friends in the KGB, CIA, and so on and so forth, and there's a lot of similarities between all of us. But what you will find out is that there is nothing that can't be learned. If another human can learn it, then so can you. It's as simple as that. It might take you a little bit longer. You might have to use a different technique, but you do kind of learn that people, whatever they've grown up and whatever their beliefs are, they can be erased and rewritten, and they can be a quick learner if they need to be, and kind of rewrite their DNA if necessary.
Okay, I love that. And I am wondering if you can share generically maybe a couple of interesting stories about your spy experiences, because everybody's interested in that. They think of James Bond. Of course, I saw your interview, your YouTube with Pete Turner, which I'm going to come to later. But you guys were talking about that, about, people think James Bond and they watch your movies and they think it's all like that. And you guys are like, ugh.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of risks that you're taking for both yourself and people you're working with. There are a lot of dangers involved, but the truth of the matter is, it's like I've said before, if you explosions and car chases and gunfights are going on, then you're doing your job very, very wrong. So yeah, with that in mind, I mean, you do have to kind of operate as under the radar as you can the most of the time. But it doesn't stop it being any more or less exciting. And you are in dangerous parts of the world, and obviously depending on where you are, can result in becoming what they call PNG, persona non grata, or in some parts of the world can result in you being killed, and the assets or potential assets that you're working with. So it's something that you do have the training to cope with these situations. But yeah, the thrills are still the same and the danger's still the same, and it certainly gets the adrenaline running. So stories from the field. Okay. There is one I've told before, which kind of I'm going to dispel a couple of myths about the kind of world of intelligence. And I have said this a couple of times, but I remember not the first, but one of the first jobs I ever did when I was actually, called in officially to work a particular assignment, and of course I'd seen the same as everybody else. I was Hollywood educated, and you see these movies. This is the guy we're looking for, and they're giving you a slideshow of, this is where he is, this is the island he lives on, this is, blah 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 blah, and whatever else, and and they'll say, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is, and of course. After they accept the mission, phones start buzzing and files start getting passed to them and all that kind of thing. And the truth of the matter, it's not like that at all. I got called into an office and I was sat down and I was told, find out how Russia are getting railgun information out of Korea. I said, okay. And then they shouted at me and said, why are you still here? I was waiting for the slideshow and the files and the phones to start ringing and the buzz of the no, none of that. It's like,
Yeah, and the
go on.
machine to melt down,
Yeah, that was it. You've got your job, off you go. So I was like, all right, that wasn't quite what I expected. So yeah, so that was the kind of there are sides of it that it's a bit like, the best way to put it, it's a bit like watching a magic show. I think when you think about intelligence, if you knew the way half the tricks were done, it would seriously disillusion your kind of outlook on this kind of, James Bond's perfect at everything and Jason Bourne can fight anybody. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of the time it's very different. We're relying more on the psychology of things rather than the skills and the kind of physical aspect.
Okay, okay. And that makes sense because it is much less glamorous than what people see on the screen, on the Hollywood screen, and say, ooh, I think I want to be that. I think I'll call up the CIA and see if they need me.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. If see that this is the real downside is if you could show them what it's like in the real world, 90% plus of them would turn around and go, "No, I'm not into that at all." But the problem is, by show you can't show them until they're in it, and then it's not until they're in it that they go, "Oh, okay, I didn't think it was quite like that."
Yeah, for sure. Now, what I want to know is with your skills, does that mean while we're doing this podcast, are you secretly studying me like a frozen cave woman? Like, are you always on? Are you seeing if I went like this or went like this or are you always on when
No,
that's your profession? Or are you just not on
no.
unless you are working?
It would drive me absolutely crazy if I had to study everybody
Okay.
constantly while I was talking. I have to switch off and out of work mode. And the thing, I mean, so the way I explain this, because I get this a lot, I get people say, "Oh, so you're a body language expert?" I say, "Yeah," and then they fold their arms and they say, "So what am I thinking?" I say, "I'm not psychic. I can get an idea of your mood. I can get whether you're happy or unhappy and that kind of thing. But as for reading your thoughts, that's a different department. Um, so what I say to people is a bit like walking past a newspaper stand in the city.
Okay.
Everybody has the ability to be able to read the headlines. Everybody has the ability to read every single word on every single article, but we don't. We walk past the news. We can see them, but it's up to us whether we choose to read them or not. And that's the same with me when I look at a crowd of people, unless something really grabs my attention, I'm looking at them and walking past them exactly the same way as people walk past a newspaper stand. They may or may not see the headlines. So in that with that in mind, I will, like I say, there are occasionally some things that people will do or say that I will go, "Ooh, hang on a minute," but it's very much the same as anybody else, that we naturally, if we're sitting in a restaurant and somebody storms in, and it grabs your attention, that's very much the same as me. People are naturally attuned to other people's body language anyway.
Okay, that's really interesting because I know talking to some law enforcement
Mhm.
people along the way, they seem to be always on high alert. It's like that's their body is just they go to a restaurant and they go different public places and they're always on. They're always looking. They have to sit toward the door. And I have
Mhm.
found that most men want to sit facing the door.
Yeah, and that side of it, I'm very much the same. Situational awareness and tradecraft side of it, that is something that I will be sitting at the rear of the room in a place where I can see the entire, every angle. I can see the exits. I can, kind of, and yes, I'll have an escape plan and a backup plan in place. I'll, this kind of thing, to the point where I'm even, I go into a restaurant now or a bar or anywhere, and my daughter knows where I'm gonna sit. She's attuned to it. It's brilliant. So that side of it, yes, that stays with me because it's just natural. You want to sit where you feel comfortable, and it's been kind of drilled into me. But the body language side of it, like I say, it's very much like seeing 100 pictures in a window. There might be one that grabs your attention, but you don't stare at all of them.
That's good to know because I think people think that, that you're just studying them. And like you said, it would drive you crazy. It would be
Mhm.
exhausting, I would
It
think.
would. Yeah, yeah. Although it has its downsides because I don't get invited to any poker matches anymore.
Okay, so I want to ask about the NLP, being an
Okay.
NLP practitioner.
Mhm.
So you, for those who may not know, explain briefly what NLP is, and in a nutshell, how can one use it to either grow a business or make sales or network or get a good deal on a car or maybe find a mate?
Yeah, brilliant. I'll give you a very short version, and what I'll do, I'll start with. So I'll explain what it is first. Now, neuro-linguistic programming is neuro as in the brain, linguistic as in the words you speak, and programming to kind of program the thoughts through the words you're speaking of another person. So it's sound when you say mind control, people go, oh, and they start getting all kind of yeah, freak out about it and whatever else. But it's not it's not mind control in the sense of turn you into a zombie. It's a sort of persuasive tactics, and there are different levels of it that you can use. So where I'll start is doing something called anchors, which is where I started to learn. You can use them on yourself, or you can use them on another person. And a perfect example is if I were to be sitting with my wife, for example, and every time she's having a really great time, I touch her on the left elbow. And eventually, just like Pavlov's dogs, when the bell used to ring and the dogs would salivate, that same conditioning would happen. She'd relate that touch on the left elbow to something really, really positive. On the flip side, if something really, really bad was happening, then I would touch her on the right elbow. And again, the same association would be, touch the right elbow, and something bad or sad is associated to it. So if I wanted to turn around and after I've done this several times and set the conditioning in and set that anchor in the elbows, if I wanted to say go for a drink with the lads on a night on a Friday and whatever else, I'd touch the left elbow and say, sweetheart, do you mind if I go for a drink with the lads? And of course, that association of positivity would kind of kick in and she'd go, yeah, sure, no problem. On the other side, if she said, well, look, I'm thinking of going to my mom's for Christmas, we could all go as a family and I could touch the right elbow and say, you sure you want to do that? And she gets the association of negativity and goes, well, nah, actually, it doesn't sound like a good idea. So that's the concept of it. Um, you can ultimately do it to yourself as well. If you're driving down the road, great song comes on, you're feeling really good, the traffic's clear, it's a brilliant day, and you just got a really good, especially even more so if something's made you laugh and you're just really feeling great. Touch your left knuckle with your right hand, and kind of just set that anchor in your left knuckle. And then what you can do is when right after you've done it, then just kind of and clear clear the screen, as it were, and reset your state. And what that will do eventually, when you've done that enough times, that knuckle will be associated with positivity, good feelings, and so on and so forth. So if ever you're feeling down or you want to pick yourself up, just touch that left knuckle and it fires that anchor and allows you to kind of pick yourself up.
That is amazing. I just have a very, very elementary basic understanding of NLP, but I
Mm.
did not know about the anchors, and I will try
Uh,
that.
it's
So,
brilliant.
yeah, how
The-
is, oh, go ahead, go
I,
ahead.
I I was going to say there is a bit more because that's what they call a physical anchor. There's audible and visual anchors as well. And for anybody who has any skepticism or doubt about this, I promise you, there is more than likely a song that the minute you hear it, you feel good. You don't know why, you just know whenever that song comes on, it just puts you in a great mood. And ultimately, there is probably a song that you can hear and it instantly makes you want to cry. And for no apparent reason, you don't know why. And those are audible anchors. Those are something that, something was happening good in your life when that song was on, or something was happening bad in your life when that other song was on. And they bring back those memories even if you can't remember them. Your subconscious relates them to those things, and that's why. So audible anchors do work, and smells are even more powerful. But yeah,
That is amazing. Yeah, that is so fascinating. And I think another question that I have that maybe people watching this might have is that how is NLP versus mind control versus hypnosis? Because I know you're an expert in hypnosis as well. How are all those three completely different? Are they interchanging with each other?
yeah, so mine can so the NLP side of it can be used for more than just firing anchors. There's the rapport building, there's loads of different things, and the linguistic side of it is learning about somebody's kind of the way their brain operates. So what you've got your kinesthetic, your olfactory, or your visual or audible kind of people. And what will happen is some people, they will speak in a particular way and they'll say the words, do you see what I'm saying? And obviously you can never see what someone's saying, but that indicates they're a visual person. Or they might say, do you see what I mean? Do you see things my way? I can see what's going to happen in the future. And that indicates they're a visual person. Then you've got the other side of it where they say, do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? Do you comprehend? That indicates that they're a kinesthetic person. And then and I helped a couple out with this the once. They were constantly rowing, and he was a visual person. She was an audible person, and they when they first got together, it was great, but two personality types clashed, and he was saying she just doesn't see things my way, she doesn't look at things the way I expect it to, and blah blah blah. And she was saying he never listens, he doesn't hear a word I say. And so what I did is I explained these two different kind of ways that the brain operates, and I said, look, she's audible, you're visual, you're speaking two different languages. And as soon as I explained how to communicate with each other, everything changed. And a year later, they got married and they're still together today.
That's amazing. And I did a Toastmasters speech in last year sometime on that visual versus auditory. And even won't people like, if I look up to the left or to the right,
Mhm.
I'm a certain kind of listener. Or if I look down, or if I don't know, there's a whole bunch of those visual
Yeah, yeah,
cues.
the eye accessing cues. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So my what I wanted to ask you, I'm kind of going down. I'm call this unscripted, but I really have questions because I
Yeah,
didn't want
no
to miss
problem.
anything and forget anything. So the LinkedIn response to posting about this podcast, let's see. Somebody responded to my post that saying you were going to be a guest, and he said you gave him some mind control tips that have really been helpful for his kids. So for the parents
Ah.
out there, can you share a couple of tips that parents can use without, like, some parents are going to like, I want to use mind control on my kids, but can you give a couple of tips on that for parents?
Yeah, no problem. And of course, people do panic when they hear the words mind control. And what you have to remember, you are already using mind control on your kids. You're already bringing them up. You're teaching them how to act, how to behave, how to play, how to interact with other people. Part of learning all the social norms of society. So you're already conditioning them. The tips I'm giving are just like kind of very very basic. And so when you hear the word mind control, don't panic and don't think that there's going to be anything going on. We're not playing with the brains of your children, kind of thing. So, but I mean, just like the basic stuff, for example, children don't like to be told no, and I'm gonna do something at some point on the illusion of choice, which is brilliant, and I use this with children all the time. So my wife used to have a battle with our daughter at tea time, and I never had a battle, and she couldn't understand why. And I said, because I'd go in and just turn around and say, right, spaghetti bolognese or pizza. And she'd go, pizza. Okay, job done. And I cook pizza. Now, if I turn around and said, what do you want for tea? What do you want for dinner tonight? There would be a long argument. We haven't got that. Well, can I have this now? Or offering two choices, it gives the illusion of choice. Giving those two options. What would you like, this one or that one? They may turn around and say, "Is there anything else?" You just say, "No, this is what we got. Which one?" Just keep and that simple kind of illusion of choice is giving the sense of freedom that the child has, that choice to be able to pick and say, oh, I'll have that one then. And that way it's very different to parents who go, I mean, I grew up, it was kind of what we're having for dinner, this is what we're having, eat it or starve. So and then kids end up reluctantly pushing food around the place, whereas if they're given that choice, they become a lot happier to kind of pick one and eat what they've picked. They'll eat it all because they picked it.
Okay, well, that's good. And does the same method or technique work with if someone's trying to find a mate? Like, I know with your interview, you said you and Pete, I think it was Pete, I have his name down here. Yeah, said like when you would, before you got married, like you'd go out. Oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a spy. Okay, bye.
Yeah, yeah, that was an ongoing problem earlier on before I met my wife, and so I tried a few different ways, and I got into a relationship with somebody who I was with for a while, and I didn't tell her what I did, and then eventually I thought, right, it's time to let her know, so I went through all the usual routine, and I said, right, this is what I do, and instead of saying, oh, brilliant, that's great, that's really interesting, and whatever else, she said, so the whole year that we've been together has been a lie. No, no, not the whole year, just the job bit. It's like, yeah, no, and of course it was, it was messy, and she never spoke to me again. And there was so, and this is why a lot of intelligence officers end up dating other intelligence officers. They know that they've both got the same clearances, they've both got the same accesses, they've both got the same knowledge of the industry, so they know what it's like. They've both got the same stresses, and so and of course you don't have to lie to them if if you're both in the same kind of building or operations or whatever. So yeah, there is that advantage, because once you step away and start in the outside world, they either think you're crazy, and you never see them again, or you date them for a while, tell them the truth, and then they think you've lied to them for the whole time, and then you never see them again. So
Yeah. Or they think you're going to tap into their phone and their email and their computer, and you're going
yeah,
to spy on them on a personal level. And that
and I
freaks
found that.
people out, I can imagine.
Yeah, and of course I have had that where I've said, bit by bit what I do, and they go, "Oh, are you listening to me? Are you doing this? Are you tracking me? Are you, And it's like, no, I'm going to work. I got
I don't have
job
that
to do.
much time to put in.
I wish I did. So yeah, it was, and of course, being the kind of person that I am, I can make assumptions and predictions which are generally pretty accurate. And then they'll say, "How could you possibly know that? Were you watching me?" And it's like, no, it's just, to me, common sense, because that's the order of the way you do things, So, but yeah, it can certainly freak people out.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm going to get into it a little bit as far as romance scams and how women can tell and all that.
Mhm.
But you're a body language expert, as we've talked about. And I did watch the podcast with you and Pete, which I thought was really good. Watch that whole thing, and it was called Spy versus Spy. And you talked briefly, about body language. And tell me about how you utilized body language as a spy and in your other business endeavors. How does
Okay.
that cross over?
So one of the most important things that you need to know, if you've recruited an asset and they're giving you secrets, you need to know that they're trustworthy in the sense of the information that they're giving you is accurate,
Mm,
that they're not sharing the information with anybody else, that they're not, giving you deliberate false information because they've been to their superiors and either got caught or been, or told I've been recruited, and then giving you kind of bad intelligence. So you need to be able to tell this about your asset when you go for a meeting with them. So being able to read them and judge whether they're being honest or not is incredibly valuable. And if you can imagine, you go to a meeting, you go through, there's a particular order that things are done in. I won't go too much into it, but basically you start always first by arranging when and where the next meeting's going to be, or the next, so because you never know how long you've got and when you're going to be interrupted or anything else. So even if you don't arrange the time and date, you will arrange the setup of how you will get the information to them or receive the information from them.
okay.
In fact, I'll tell you a little secret here, which I'm not sure is common knowledge, but one of the ways that we've done it in the past, and it's really, really easy, we give the asset a Starbucks card, a gift card. And what happens is we monitor the gift card. They make a purchase at Starbucks, and then when we go online, we can see that the $10 has gone down to, $6.21 or whatever. And then
Mhm.
we go, okay, they've made a purchase, and that's our signal to say they want to meet. And then we know that
Gotcha.
we can set the meeting up. So anyway, sorry, I've digressed.
No,
So
that's
yeah, so Yeah, we go and we meet the asset. We arrange like the setup for the next meeting, or the time and date for the next meeting, or at least the communications. And we start through the usual process of have you been compromised? Did you get here okay? And the usual, making sure everything's fine, and then establish how much time we've got. And part of the process then is to find out if anybody has asked them, or any other intelligence officers, either their own or others, have kind of recruited them also.
Mm.
So if you sit them down and you say, well, have the Russians tried to contact you as well? And they go, oh no. And all of a sudden you go, okay, they weren't talking like that previously. Or you say to somebody, have the French been in touch? No, have the Germans been in touch? No, have the Chinese been in touch? And they go, you go, what? Have the Chinese been to? Not today. Not today. Okay, right. That's interesting. So like being able to kind of
Okay.
look and obviously, for the sake of this, I'm over exaggerating, but you get the gist of being able to look at somebody and say, okay, something's not right there, and that will
Okay.
then allow you to probe further.
Okay, great. I'm going to put this on pause.
Hopefully. So yeah, so the kind of deception detection, the body language side of it is only one kind of aspect, though. That there is all the other side of it, the psychology and the kind of what I call statement analysis, or other things. And what you've got with this combined communication analysis is you're not just looking at the body language, you're looking at their blink rate, you're looking at their breath location, their breath rate, you're looking at their movements, and then more importantly, you're taking into account the words they say.
Okay.
And this is something that again, I've mentioned similar things in the past, but you can say to somebody, have you stolen my cash out the drawer? And they go, I've never been in your drawer. And you think, okay, I didn't get a no, and I didn't get a, no, I haven't taken the cash withdrawal. So you have to look at what they're saying and say, are they giving me the answer, or are they giving me an answer that will, most people would be pacified by hearing something, that like, I mean, a famous one that I use is, have you taken my wallet? I don't even know where you keep your wallet. Well, you haven't told me you haven't taken it. It doesn't mean to say you haven't found it and stole it. It doesn't mean to say you didn't come across it accidentally. You've given me an answer that would kind of, satisfy most people, but you didn't say, no, I haven't taken your wallet. So listening to that, putting it together with all the other cues, and taking it all into account, you've got a good idea that that person's been deceptive.
Okay, that is really interesting. And I'm going to dive a little bit more into that as well. And like what you named it a little bit just as you were just talking, but what are some simple observations a person can make to read another person's body language, just a novice who doesn't know anything about it? Are there really obvious things that a person can observe?
Mm-hmm. So, and again, this will vary from person to person, as with everything when it comes to body language. The most important thing to do is what we call in the industry baselining them. So you have to first find out what's normal for them, because if you don't know what's normal for them, you don't know what's abnormal. So, and then when you find out what's normal, you can look for the abnormal and spot it. But so one of the easiest things to look for is a stress indicator, which is somebody's blink rate. And that's the amount of, so a lot of people blink, but if they suddenly, let's say, just like what you were doing there, starts going faster and faster, rapid blinks, more frequently, closer together. That's when it's usually what they call a high stress signal.
Okay.
And now again, different people, and again under different circumstances, this will change, and alter, depending on the kind of person they are anyway. So but usually when you're relaxed, you're watching a movie, you're chilled out, you won't you'll hardly be blinking. You'll be very relaxed and your eyes won't move. And if they do, you'll blink very slow. Sometimes when you're drifting off, it's a very
Mhm.
slow blink. So whereas if you're really, really stressed, it'll be a very fast, quick blink, and there'll be lots of it together. So these are the things to look for. But like I said, baseline first, check the person first and see whether they're somebody who, my wife blinks a lot all the time.
Okay.
Whereas, my daughter doesn't, she can kind of stay looking like an animated character for quite some time. So different people have it different. So, find out what's normal for them and then look to see if that blink rate has increased. And an easy way to work it out is just to count how many blinks they do in 6 seconds, and then times it by 10, and you've got their blink rate per minute.
Okay. Kind of like the heartbeat
Yeah,
rate.
just like taking someone's pulse, basically. Yeah, exactly the same. So if you've got an analog watch, does anybody have an analog watch anymore? But you can watch the second hand go by, and
Yeah.
when you've seen it past 6 seconds, if you've counted the blinks, you've got an idea of what their rate per minute is if you times it by 10. There's a lot more of that in my book, that goes deeper into more signals. So that's a
Oh,
nice easy one.
and yes, and I will absolutely include the link to both your books, or well,
Thank you.
actually all three of them, but we're going to talk about those as well. So I want to kind of turn the corner to, my latest book is The Heart Swindler, Reclaim Your Heart and Stop Falling for Liars, Losers, and Lunatics. My own stories are in there, a couple of them. And when it comes to detecting romance scammers, and I'm going to say, I know men fall prey to this all the
Yep.
time as well, but in relation to women, look, and it's about even, maybe a slight more percentage for women that fall for romance scammers, but can the average person with none of your expertise enlist a few tactics to tell quicker if the other person is lying or fraud? Or does that go back to the blinking and with somebody, can you see their chest rise and fall? Or is there, because most of this is done, not all of it, most of it's done online
hmm
without
So
video sometimes. There
yeah, and
ways.
I've discussed this so many times with there are so many scammers out there and so many people who fall for it because at the end of the day, these people on the other end, these scams, they know exactly what to say.
Yes.
They've had lots of practice at it. They've failed many times to get as good as what they are to be able to know the right words, and they will play on the heartstrings of people. And let's face it, if you're lonely and you want somebody, and somebody comes along and they appear to be everything you've ever wanted, you want so desperately to believe in them even more.
Yeah. Women
Um,
are like,
oh yeah, yeah.
in the desert, just longing for someone to pay attention to them. And a lot of them are midlife widows or
hmm
newly divorcees, but a lot of widows fall for these scammers because they're lonely. They've had long-term marriages and they just want a companion, and they're like prime target for these
Yeah.
guys. So I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, no, not at all. I mean, and you've hit the nail on the head. They are literally, like you say, a prime target, and of course, they are the prey that are after them. They will deliberately scour for ages to find somebody who ticks the boxes of kind of yes, this is an easy target. So it really is a shame. But I mean, I've said several times, if you can get a video call straight away or as soon as possible, it's that is a huge thing. Never send money to anybody that you either haven't met or haven't at least seen on video. And I wouldn't recommend sending money to anyone anyway, ever.
yeah.
I've known of instances where women have like kind of remortgaged their house or taken out loans or credit cards and all sorts of things. Yeah, and men as well, to be fair. To send money to somebody because they say, I need this or and yeah, there is a particular lady in Florida in Miami, a friend of mine. Bless her, she's the most wonderful, giving, lovely person you could ever meet. And every week she was giving somebody another 10 grand or another 20 grand. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, and she's like, yeah, but he needed this money to get back the rest of the last money that he lost. And I'm like, that's not how it works. So the excuses that this guy was giving, she originally invested a load of money into what she thought was going to be a Hollywood movie. And I remember sitting her down one day because at one point the check had got lost. Then he had a replacement check, which the ATM apparently ate. Then he had cash and he got mugged by 8 guys when he was in his limousine that took the cash off him. And I said to her, I said, look, I said, in the nicest possible way. I said, you don't want anything to do with this guy. I said, because either he's a liar and all of this is complete and utter BS, or he's the unluckiest guy in the world if it is true. I said, it's either way, you don't want anything to do with him. So, kind of just get to know somebody for real and in person, and if they haven't got the money to come and see you, then do you really want to be in a relationship with them anyway?
Exactly. Oh, you make so many good points. And this seems common sense and it
Hmm.
seems to be that way, but women fall for it every day.
Hmm.
And they, like you said, they mortgage their houses. One woman borrowed from her parents. And a lot of times what the women don't realize is that if you've loaned money or put money on your credit cards to send to a scammer, most of the time overseas,
Hmm.
and you have to pay back that money.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
he's probably not going to jail because you willingly gave it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the hard part. Scam or not, it's the whole proving it was a scam, because like you say, the fact that it's overseas to start with is the biggest barrier. But I mean, I suppose in that instance, for the majority of people, the best little bit of advice I can give is find somebody who has kind of zero attachment to you and the other person, and just take your laptop, tablet, phone, whatever, and just say, "Hey, have a look at this for me and tell me what you think." Don't give them any information. Don't hint it might be a scammer. Don't hint it might not be. Don't just say, "Have a look at this. I've been chatting to this guy. Tell me what you think." And if they start flicking through and go, "Ooh," and you go, "What?" And they go, "This just all seems a little bit too good to be true." 3 days in, he's in love with you and he wants to marry you and you're the perfect person, and they're love bombing you with all the,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, more red flags on a Russian airport, and of course, people on the receiving end tend to ignore all these red flags, because they're like, kind of, oh, but he's telling me everything I want to hear. So if you can get somebody who, whether it's a colleague at work, a neighbor, or anybody, and just say, look, give me an opinion. And that is a good place to start. And if that person turns around to you and says, this just all seems a bit too good to be true, listen to it.
Yes, that's what was said to me with a romance scammer, online romance scammer, when I was first divorced in the early 2000s. And I didn't know anything. I'd been married since 20, I'm new
Mm.
to the dating. I didn't even know what dating was. And I was 43 years old. And that's exactly what someone said to me. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Oh, no, 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 no. This is different. I did the same classic thing, not knowing
Yeah.
anything, and now being much more educated about it. Is just that saying is well worn because it's true.
Hmm. And I used to give dating advice, and unfortunately, we live in a world where so much is online these days. And I advise everybody, don't don't bother with online dating. There's too many
Never.
pitfalls. There's too many idiots. There's too many false profiles, and amongst all of that, you tend to get people that become a lot more picky. They'll look at somebody and go, "Oh no, he's got brown shoes. I couldn't wear it. I couldn't date a guy with brown shoes." Or, "Oh no, look, he's got a Henry Lloyd shirt. No, 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 not good enough." And and of course, you could be out, and whereas these things online, that you can pick if they're a Virgo, or if they're or a particular, and you can put all these filters in. And what you could do, you could actually end up ruining what could be a good date, because you put all these picky filters in. You could go, to your online dating and rule out all the people who are Virgos and say, no, 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 I'd never want to date a Virgo. You could go to a bar, you could meet somebody, you get on absolutely great with them. They turn out to be fantastic and think this is the one. And then they tell you afterwards that they're a Virgo, and you're like, do you know what? He's too good. I don't care. I'm not gonna, I'll look past it. So by the online thing, you're making things worse for yourself. Get out to where there's people, and 9 times out of 10, you're meeting them as they really are, because the majority of the time they don't look anything like their pictures.
Absolutely. There's so many fake picture profiles out
Mhm.
there. And I'm thinking sometimes that, okay, you are an 80-year-old wrinkly woman, and this 30-year-old buff dude is interested in you. I don't know. Think about it for a moment. I don't want to bust anybody's ego, but
Mm. Yeah, yeah, there is that, and and again, they're never average looking, are they? But and the other side of it, I mean, like when I used to give dating advice, there was this one particular female. I won't obviously share her name publicly, but she came to me and she said, "Look, I'm fed up of dating losers." And I said, "Well, where did you meet the last guy?" She said, "Well, in my local bar." I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Yeah, he seemed okay. I got to know him. He was a loser. We split up." I said, "Okay. And what about the one before him?" She was in my local bar. I said, "Okay." She said, "I dated him for a while. Found out he was a loser. We split up." I said, "What about the last guy before him?" I said, "You're detecting a pattern here." And, and she said, "Well, I suppose so." I said, "Right, let me ask you something." I said, "What's your ideal guy?" And she says, "Oh, like a pilot. He's got to be tall. He's got to be, this, that, and the other, and blah, blah." I said, "Okay. So how many pilots drink in your local bar?" And
Yeah.
she went, "Well, no pilots drink in my local bar." I said, "Okay, plan A, start drinking at the airport." And I said that you're doing the term I used to call at the time was fishing in a puddle. You're
Mm,
never going to catch what you want. I said, so at the end of the day, if you want to date a pilot, start having breakfast at the airport, start having lunch at the airport, start drinking in the airport bars, or go to the hotels near the airport where the pilots are going to be staying and drinking the hotel bars. You'll find yourself a pilot. That's where they're going to be. You won't find one in your local sports bar. If you want to date a lawyer, go to the coffee houses for coffee by the courthouse. Whatever you want, you go to where the crowds are, as it were,
yeah,
and you increase your chances.
exactly. That is so true. And a lot of women think that, oh, he's just going to knock at the door and that's it. Now, unless it's a FedEx man or the UPS man, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So what happens? What if I conclude that someone is indeed lying? Say I'm in a dating relationship and somebody is lying. What's the next step? Is there a way to effectively address it without creating an antagonistic situation?
So here it depends on the outcome you want. And you have to look at the outcome you want and work backwards. So hypothetically, if said person has cheated on you in a relationship, you have to ask yourself, do I forgive them? Can I forgive them? Or do I not? Because if the answer is yes, if you're going to forgive them,
Mhm.
then it's up to you then to decide, well, is it even worth bringing it up? Do I just let it go? If you're not going to forgive them, you have to say, right, I'm not going to forgive them. What's going to happen? Do I want them out, or or do I leave, or whatever the situation may be? So if you start from what you want the outcome to be and work your way backwards, and if you just want them to confess, that's fair enough. There's ways of doing that. It's all in the book. There are ways of getting people to confess, but what you've got to ask yourself is at what price?
Mhm.
And this is where a lot of people are fixated on, I want to know the truth. It's like, okay, you can get to know the truth, but it's probably going to cost you your relationship or your marriage or your job or whatever the case may be. Are you willing to sacrifice that just to know the truth? And you may find out the truth is not what you thought it was. You may get to the confession and find out something completely different. So with that in mind, yes, there are methods. It would be a long lesson to go through the whole process of getting somebody who wants to conceal the truth, and the process of getting them to give it to you. And again, that would all change dependent up on that person's personality type. So,
Okay.
like I say, it is in the book, but it would be a couple of hours to if I went through. Well, if it's this kind of person, you're going to say that. And if this circumstances, because it will all change depending on the severity. And I'm honestly not being deliberately nebulous. Just trying to kind of
Yeah.
explain the intricacies of it.
Yeah, and absolutely, there's too much involved and too many intricacies, as you said, to go into all of that. But that's a really good, and we're going to come up to your book, and I want to talk about as we kind of wrap up a little bit your books. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about how to tell if someone is lying and why should people buy this book?
Right. Okay. So this for me is something that I actually did a first edition of it, and when I first wrote it, it was selling really, really great. People were absolutely loving it. For some reason, I find the sales of this book always go up at Christmas. I mean, they really kind of seriously increase at Christmas. So it appears everybody wants to know the truth for Christmas. And what I did is the first edition, it was okay, but I wanted to deliver a lot more value. I wanted to really cram it with practical things that people could use. And unlike the other books that are out there, it teaches you the methodology to learn all the systems. So rather than just saying, this is a way you can tell if someone's lying, and that's the way, and that's the way, it shows you how to implement them and get used to using them and doing them in your everyday life, so that you can kind of, become proficient in one thing, then move on to the next at a pretty rapid rate. Um, what you have to remember is when you're learning something like whether it's body language, whether it's any of the arts, as it were, you can't just read a book and then think you can go out and do it. That would be as insane as reading a book on Spanish and then thinking you're fluent in the language, and then going to a Spanish restaurant and wondering why you can't order anything and why the waiter can't understand you. So, you don't just read a book and become fluent. And it's exactly the same for this. So, but with this, it does teach you step by step ways to say, right, start with this, build on it, then, and each building block makes you more proficient. So by the end of the book, you're approaching expert level, and with more practice, there's no reason why anyone couldn't master it.
It's in my Amazon wish list. So I definitely want to get that. And also, you wrote two fiction spy novels. So give
Mhm.
us a spoiler alert for the fiction novel, The Unforgiven Spy.
So the Unforgiven Spy, I'm going to tell you the history of it. It was something that when I first started writing it out, it was kind of a bit of it started with a drunken conversation with my mother-in-law, my wife, and whatever else, and they said, look, you're good at telling the stories, type it out, put your story of what you've done into a book. So I said, okay, why not? I'll give this a try. So I sat down and I, plonked it all out on the keyboard, and I thought, well, there's nothing to this writing malarkey. Anybody can do this. And I had this kind of yeah, what I thought was a manuscript. If only I'd have known what I was getting myself into. And I said to the mother-in-law, I said, there you go. I said, what's all the fuss about this writing? I said, easy. And she looked at it and she said, this isn't a book. She said, this is a report. She said,
Nothing
what
like
you've
a wife to give you the brutal truth.
Oh yeah. She's like, yeah, no, this isn't. She's a book contains description and the five senses and I was like, okay, yeah, no, but I've written what happened. She's, yeah, you've written what happened like it's an instruction manual. Go away and learn how to write. So very many failed attempts later.
Oh.
I finally pieced together what was a reasonably good manuscript, or at least what I thought was a reasonably good manuscript at the time. When I read it back, I thought this is going to create World War III. This is going to create a lot of problems if I list everything I've done, because it was based on my life and career. And
Mhm.
I thought I can't release this. So I thought maybe if I just change a few names, water a few things down, and whatever else, it might be acceptable. So I tried that, and I watered it down that much that when I read it back, even I got bored and I didn't want to read it. So what do I do now? And a friend of mine from MI6, he's an author as well, best-selling author, and he said, look, write it as fiction. He said, because that way you can take a little bit of what you've done here, a little bit of what you've done there, get all the best bits, chuck it in a story, and it doesn't matter, and nobody's going to. So I thought, okay, that's a great idea. So that's what I did. I wrote it as fiction. And because he knows my sense of humor, and again, a lot of people, said, make it a comical book. So when it first started, it was meant to be very tongue in cheek, and it was called, the original working title was called Spy at Home Dad.
Okay.
And and it was meant to be a comedy, kind of very light-hearted thing, and it still kind of is, but there's a lot of serious turns and a lot of the darker side of working in the industry that are in there. However, everything in there that happens in the book is all from first-hand experience. So if there's a place mentioned in the book, I've been there. If there's something happened in the book, I've done it. So everything. The only thing that is kind of not in any way written from experience is the main character's wife and daughter gets kidnapped, and I'm lucky enough to say that's never happened to me, and hope it never does. So despite helping out on K&R cases in the past, I'm lucky enough. So that was just taken from kind of other people in the industry that have helped me out to piece that together. But other than that, the continuity is 100%. If I mention a website, it's real. If I mention a code to a door, that's the code to the door. So everything is spot on, or at least it was at the time of writing the story anyway.
Okay, now when you got it all completely redone and
Mhm.
listened to your wife and retold it and all that, when she read it again, what was her reaction when
She
it
loved
was?
it.
Oh, she
She,
loved it. Okay.
but that being said, she read it probably. I mean, it's probably about 100 times of rereading, rewriting, and going through it. And they started many years ago. So it was edited about 4 times by 4 different people before I finally found a good editor that was good enough to actually do it properly. But yeah, and the cover was brilliant. Everything was brilliant, and it went out there. And I'm now currently working on parts 2 and 3. It's number one in the series. It was going to be a trilogy, but if it continues the way it started and the success and demand for it, then I will continue it as a series.
Okay. Do you have aspirations for it to be done in a movie? Could it
Oh,
be a
oh,
movie?
yeah. I mean, it's written in a way that for screen adaptation would be quite easy. To be fair, and it would be. Yeah, it'd be easy. I'd love it to be a movie. Whether it ever will or not, I don't know. The other one that I wrote, Questionable Tactics, that is even more so something that would be even easier to put into a movie. And again, it'd definitely make great screenplay. It'd definitely look good as a movie.
Okay. Well, anybody that's listening, that's a that's in that industry, you heard it. You know how
That's
to reach Gavin. Any parting words of wisdom or tidbits of knowledge that you want to leave the audience with?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Um, I I tell you that the best thing to do, and I know this is going to be a little bit of a shameless plug for my YouTube channel, if you don't mind. I
Please do.
have I have a lot of guests from the intelligence community, from CIA, FBI, kind of KGB, all of that. I've got the whole alphabet soup on there. And I do this thing where we do like a tradecraft Thursday, and we talk about all the different things we've done, work we've done in the field. And there is some fantastic, valuable lessons in there, especially some of the stuff I've done with Lena Sisko and Robin Dreek, who were former naval intelligence and FBI spy recruiter. We've done some really good stuff in there. So rather than me trying to think of a great tip to leave everybody with, there is loads of great lessons in those videos. If they want to go and check those out, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that is awesome, and I'm gonna systematically work through them because I found the titles and the subject matter very intriguing and interesting. So I am going to, and I subscribed
Oh, thank you.
to it.
Yeah,
So
everybody subscribe. I'm still trying to build that up.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, so am I. So, well, I will, yeah, and I will put all this in the show notes, and all the links and everything, your YouTube, everything will be in there so
Oh,
people can
fantastic.
easily access it. And all I have to say is thank you. Thank
No
you,
problem at
Gavin,
all.
for taking your time.
No problem. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.